come to me.
Focus Features invites you to succumb to the darkness.
Nosferatu.
From director Robert Eggers comes a masterpiece of horror.
He is coming. This creature is a force more powerful than evil. It is death itself.
Nosferatu. Rated R. Under 17 nanometer without parent. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Special engagements in Dolby and IMAX.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Testa, and this is our show for the week of Shimmer's Day, December 23rd, 2024. On the show today, in news, I stay at the new Island Tower at Disney's Polynesian Resort, and I love it. Plus listener questions on where other Magic Kingdom resorts might go. Then in our main segment, Jim continues the history of Disney's Riviera Resort. Let's get started by bringing in the man whose line of Morrissey-scented toaster-shaped bath bombs make great stocking stuffers. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's Morrissey-scented. Really?
It's a citrus musk thing? Yeah, that's what I'm going with, yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to share here, folks, that while I had previously been familiar with the Christmas toast, you know, when you raise a glass to your friends and family and wish everyone in the vicinity a happy holiday. It was only this morning, thanks to the effort of one Testa, that I learned of the Christmas toaster. Actually a thing. Ray Dunn has... Yep, Ray Dunn offers one of these things that has joy and stylized snowflakes on either side. On the other hand, the folks at Pop Arts have come up with a toaster that has 6 individual brands that you can change out so you can burn in the side of your cinnamon toast. Santa's face or a snowman or a stocking. And then, I mean, if you really want to go whole hog, the folks at Lux Art have come up with an actual Christmas sleigh toaster. Comes in 2 colors, red and purple, but it actually features a set of runners as its base. So this is an appliance you can actually send hurtling downhill.
Thank God.
There we go. So I honestly, Len, I do not know what to get. I have to say here, I'm concerned that I want something that will not clash with my Kwanzaa-themed cutting board or the piggy bank that I put my Hanukkah guilt in. So...
What I'm hearing, Jim, is that you have tons of options.
There we go.
I'm going to throw one more at you. The college football playoff Pop-Tart Bowl has, for this year, a trophy that includes a working toaster built into the trophy for Pop-Tarts.
Wow. I love that. You know, multitasking. Oh,
on brand, Jim.
There we go.
On brand. That's the secret to marketing.
Okay, there we go.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Colleen McMahon, Lawrence Beeman, Lexi F., Nancy Presley, Michael Mobley, and Jonathan Edward. Jim, these are Disney's keepers of the Menehune, the Hawaiian spirits who roam the Polynesian Resort. Legend has it that at night you can hear the Menehune whisper things like, "Watch the fireworks by the pool with a Mai Tai. Guava pastries and coffee are a complete breakfast. And book another stay before you leave." True story.
Interesting note here. I actually have a Menehune right by the sink here at the house. I want to say when they were doing the original sort of sales things for Ohana, if you went, they gifted you a Menehune who, by the way, whispered pretty much the same thing. You don't have nearly enough points. You know,
exactly. Book more. Yeah.
There we go.
All right, on to the news. Folks, the news is sponsored by TouringPlans.com. Touring Plans helps you save time and money at theme parks like Walt Disney World. Check us out at TouringPlans.com. All right, Jim, the Island Tower at Disney's Polynesian Resort opened last Tuesday. I was there. This is a 10-floor tower on Seven Seas Lagoon, 268 rooms, I believe, although some of the rooms aren't in inventory right now. I think 8208, 8212, 16, 32, and 34 are being used by the DVC offices themselves as model rooms. So second floor stuff not available.
Okay.
But a couple of things, you know, going in. When I'm looking at a hotel, especially a Disney hotel, Jim, the first criteria I have is, does it express the theme that Disney's Imagineers said it would, right? So if it says a Hawaiian theme, I expect to see Hawaiian things in there, right? And so on. And the second thing is what depth does that theming have at the resort? And my guideline for this is, if I change the paint and change the art on the wall, could it be the beach club?
Okay.
And so by that criteria, the Island Tower is fantastic. It's a 2-story lobby when you walk in, very reminiscent of Alani when you walk in. So in Alani, when you walk in, it's a relatively shallow lobby, and you can see directly through to the back and water out the back. And the exact same thing happens at the Island Tower. You walk in, it's a giant 2-story lobby, and then you see directly through to the back to floor-to-ceiling glass windows and Seven Seas Lagoon beyond it. So really, really nice entrance thing. And then keeping in sort of the style of, Jim, how the Riviera has a relatively small lobby area, and then it immediately goes to wings where there are other things. This is sort of like that. So you walk in, there's a giant, two-story lobby with columns, holding up the building itself. Directly out back is Seven Seas Lagoon, which you can see. There's a small check-in area, but it's not in the lobby. It's sort of off to the right-hand side, and then the restaurant is also off to the right-hand side. So the lobby area is really sort of a space where people come and go. And that gives it a visual dynamic that's really, really nice.
Okay. Interesting.
Tons of seating there, including seating with USB ports. So if you're waiting for, your transportation back to the airport, it'll include, you'll have the ability to charge your phone before you go. Fits in really, really well. And then if you walk outside, there's a restaurant and, walkways and stuff back and forth to either the Grand Floridian or the other part of the Polynesian. But the building itself is interesting for a number of reasons. And a couple of them I didn't realize until I actually stayed in the building. The first one is this. So the building faces the Seven Seas Lagoon, which means it faces east. And Disney put a bunch of public spaces also facing east, so facing Seven Seas Lagoon, with plenty of outdoor public seating. And that is great because when the sun is setting to the west, the building blocks the heat of the sun from you. So you're not gazing directly into the surface of the sun as you're trying to look out, have a nice drink with Seven Seas Lagoon. And it also makes it a lot cooler. Like the day that I was there, I think the high temperature was 84. It was about the perfect Disney day.
Okay.
Really, really, really nice. And the thing that I mentioned was, Jim, had they put the exact same resort on the opposite side of Seven Seas Lagoon, you would be staring directly into the sun into the afternoon, and that would be not great.
Not good.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I like in terms of public spaces is this. Roughly every other floor on the resort has a 2-story cutout terrace available to everyone who's staying at the resort, where you can walk out and look at either Seven Seas Lagoon or look at the golf course on the other side. So I believe it's odd number floors look out over Seven Seas Lagoon, and even numbers look out over the golf course. But that's fantastic because even if you're staying in a standard view room, you can access one of these terraces, and there's plenty of room in there, plenty of seating in them. You can access the terraces to watch the Magic Kingdom fireworks at night. So even if you have a standard view room or a resort view room overlooking the golf course, you can still see the fireworks staying in the hotel, and it's on a floor-by-floor basis. And you got to give Disney credit here for that, because they took basically 4 rooms out of inventory, 2 on each floor, to make this 2-room terrace.
Okay. Well, let's be honest here, that if you're a DVC customer, you're already a fairly dedicated Disney World enthusiast, that sort of thing. So this is the sort of amenity you definitely take advantage of.
Right, Jim. I put a photo of one of the terraces in the show notes. You can see it there.
Okay. Wow.
And it's got one side is wood and wood carvings with plants. The other side is a huge Hawaiian 2-story mural. And then even the seating is themed. Like that's not seating that you would see at the beach club.
No.
And there's art on the roof that hides the lights. There's fans for circulating air. This is a really, really well done thing. And I don't think Disney's done this before. And if they have, they haven't done it at this scale on a Walt Disney World resort. So this is an innovation, I think, in Disney hotels. We always say that Disney hotels of late are cookie cutter sort of generic things, but this is a great idea and it works really, really well.
Wow.
I really like this at the resort. Yeah.
I have to say, looking at this now, I am suddenly Very interested in what they're going to do with the Lakeside Lodge over
Exactly.
on Bay Lake. Wow. Okay.
And there are multiple of these. So, on, again, odd numbered, even numbers floors, there's not just two of them. There are several.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in a deluxe studio with a preferred view room. So preferred view for Disney in this case means you're overlooking the pool or something like that. In this case, though, another great feature that Disney did is this. So my preferred view room looked out directly over the pool. Like if I looked out and down, bang on right in the middle of the pool. But the way that Disney oriented the building and the way that they angled the wings, my patio, if I walked out and looked straight down, I could see the pool. But if I turned ever so slightly to the left, I had a full-on view of the entire Magic Kingdom shoreline, including a perfect view of the fireworks. And Jim, this is a preferred view room. It's not a theme park view room.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. My room was 8662, and I think anything on an upper floor that ends in 62 is going to have that same Magic Kingdom fireworks view. It's a very, very good view, and we're going to talk about the price, but I think this makes it the best Magic Kingdom Resort hotel. We'll talk about that.
Wow. Okay.
Rooms itself were spacious. Everything was obviously super clean. It had that fake vinyl hardwood floor thing going on, but in an interesting chevron pattern. 2 beds, 1 queen bed, 1 pull-down queen. Both of them were super comfortable. Plenty of storage space underneath the standard queen bed, and then plenty of drawer space for stays. This room actually had a small dishwasher and a mini fridge, but no freezer. And it had one of those coffee makers that's a combination drip and Keurig style. So you could do either or during the day. Had actual plates instead of paper plates.
Okay.
And I think that's why the dishwasher was there. Yeah. And then, enough plates, cups, and utensils for, 4 people for a quick meal or whatever. Like I said, the patio was big enough for 4 people. Absolutely fine. Lighting was good in the room. Bathroom. The bathroom was really well designed. It had 1 sink, but plenty of sink space. The lighting was a little low for what I would expect. And again, my thing with lighting is if you're trying to get ready in a low light scenario like evening or morning, and you're not trying to, light up the entire room, and you have dark hair, it's really hard for your hair to stand out against the background, right? So if you've got dark hair and it's dark, it's hard to see what you're doing, right? And so, the lighting could be a little bit better, but overall not bad. The shower's big enough for 4 people if you're into that sort of thing. It had a rainforest shower head and a wand. Shower presser was okay, not great. Again, 6th floor, so that could be part of it. But overall, very, very good room, very functional. I liked it a lot, had no complaints. Oh, one interesting thing. The studios have USB outlets, USB-A and USB-C, on the sides of the fold-down bed, but not the main bed. And I don't know if this is a intentional design decision or just happened to be the room that we were in, because I went and looked at 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units, and they had USB outlets on either side of the beds, but the studio we were in did not. And I don't know if that's a thing for all the studios or just the one I was in. So something to look at. So anyway, if you're going to stay and you're staying in a studio, bring one of your USB bricks if you want to charge devices by your bed. So that was that part was fantastic. Kitchen was super functional. We went to lunch at the Wailulu Bar and Grill, which is the outside restaurant. I love that they actually added a full service restaurant there, because you wouldn't want to put all kinds of demand on the existing Poly restaurant. So Jim, we get there and we're like the second group of people ever seated at the restaurant. And our server asked if we would like to sit at one of the curved tables, like the benches. And I'm a simple man, Jim. You know that, right?
True. Okay. Yes.
This seat had attached to it, all the sort of like the curved benches have attached to them their own infinity pool effect, so that when you're seated, you're looking out over water right next to your table that's overlooking the lagoon. And is that so much to ask for in every restaurant, Jim? An infinity pool effect?
It sounds lovely.
It was really nice.
Okay, just throw in a bottomless gin and tonic, and I'm there.
And they had a lovely gin mule. It was really good.
Oh, okay, all right.
So they serve from breakfast from 7 a.m. to 11. Then it's lunch and dinner from 11 to 10 p.m. A couple of highlights. They do a short rib entree with rice cakes. That's delightful. I think it's probably my favorite thing on the menu. Number 2 would be a smash burger, which you wouldn't think would be Hawaiian, but it's really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
For appetizers, I liked the ahi tuna crisps. Those were really good. Actually, there were no appetizers that I wouldn't order again. And of the entrees, we tried the poke bowl, the pork chop, the short rib, as I mentioned, the burger, and we had one other thing. I can't remember what it is. All of them were fine. I would say the one thing I probably wouldn't order again is the pork chop. It was it's teriyaki glaze. It's kind of a one-note dish, and it's huge. It's a very large pork chop, and it's a lot of the same flavor. I would split it among like 4 people actually as an appetizer. I was going to do it. Okay. And everything's big enough for 2. Yeah, but overall food quality was very good. The drinks were solid. Service was very, very good. So the restaurant was a hit. The one thing I noticed about the restaurant for breakfast is everything's sort of like a pastry or a carb. There's no, other than yogurt, there's no real protein option for breakfast, and my guess is that menu is going to get updated.
Okay. But also remember, this is a Magic Kingdom area resort, and the assumption is
you're going to go somewhere else. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. The getting in and out is easy. There's 2 ways to come in. So if you remember, Jim, the World Drive flyover splits in 2. If you go straight, it's headed towards the Wilderness Lodge and Contemporary and the TTC. And if you bear to the left, it's the Grand Floridian and the Poly. Okay, you would think you would take the left path, but I actually think it's easier to go straight. And then, the intersection where the light is to turn right for the Wilderness Lodge.
Yep.
I would actually, and left to the TTC, I'd actually turn left. And the reason is if you take the left World Drive flyover, the thing that says, go to the Polynesian, you actually end up in the middle of a major construction zone with stop signs blocking your path. But here's the thing. So there's stop signs if you're going north and south. The traffic going west doesn't stop, which makes it really difficult to get through that stop sign. And I've been to this resort twice. Both times there was a delay because of an accident at that intersection where not everyone understands it. So for now, at least until the construction is done there, till they widen it to 4 lanes, I would actually go straight and make a left, go by the TTC and come into the Poly that way. That seems like the easiest way to do it. Getting out's actually a challenge too, because you're trying to make a left on that road.
Yeah.
So the fastest thing to do, especially if you're doing it during the day, maybe just make a right and go make the big loop around Magic Kingdom.
Okay. And who knows what you'll see. It's especially interesting now with the cranes starting to pop up around the kingdom.
Right. You'll and eventually the question that everybody had is like, when are we going to shut down the railroad to move dirt in and out, right?
Well, the interesting question.
All right. So in terms of cost for this thing, I paid cash. It was a little, hold your breath, folks. It was a little over $1,520 for one night in a studio. Those are the opening day prices when reservations became available and points were not yet able to be used. I wanted to make sure I got in on opening day. Okay, it's not worth $1,500 a night. That's not a hotel room for $1,500 a night. But if you rent DVC points, I think this is the best value in the Magic Kingdom Resort area, and I don't think it's close.
Okay.
So I put the points chart, Jim, in the show notes. And just to talk through it. For the room I stayed in, again, preferred view overlooking the pool, but with a fantastic view of the Magic Kingdom fireworks. 19 points per night in September to 43 per night for the week of Christmas and New Year. And at $23 a point, which is sort of the standard rate, that's $437 to $989 per night.
Okay.
$437 per night for an upper floor room with view of the Magic Kingdom fireworks and walking distance to the TTC and the Magic Kingdom is a no-brainer, right? So for comparison, here are the rack rates for standard rooms at Magic Kingdom Resort area hotels, right? So the Poly itself is $734 to $1,318, which is substantially $300 or $400 more expensive than the room I stayed in. That's the cheapest standard room. Wilderness Lodge, $546 to $1,008. So again, more expensive. You can't walk to the TTC or the Magic Kingdom.
You can't.
From Nobles.
Yeah.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the closest pricing, Jim, is the Fort Wilderness Cabins, which is $485 to $948. So basically, you can walk to the Magic Kingdom and see the Magic Kingdom fireworks at the Poly Island Tower for what you'd pay for a Fort Wilderness cabin.
Wow. So we're talking Copper Creek?
No. The Fort Wilderness cabins. The new cabins on the campground.
I was about to say, okay. All right.
So if your choices are Fort Wilderness cabin or Poly Island Tower for the same money.
Yeah. No. I get it.
The Contemporary 609 to 1090, that's for Garden Wing, which again, okay, you can walk to the Magic Kingdom. It's pretty easy. You have decent view of the fireworks, right? That's a good comparator, right? Bay Lake Tower 721 to 1226. The Grand Flow is 824 to 1350. And just for kicks, I looked up Port Orleans Riverside, Jim. $289 for the cheapest night. So the question is for another $140, $150, would you upgrade from Port Orleans Riverside, a standard room, to Magic Kingdom fireworks view at the Poly Island Tower? Would you spend $150 more per night for that? Without question, right?
Of course.
I would sell plasma throughout the year to afford that.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
All right.
So this is where I think renting points is the value. Like during the off season, you can get a really fantastic room within walking distance of the Magic Kingdom, also walking distance of the Grand Floridian restaurants, the Poly restaurants, and so on for $150 more than a moderate halfway across property.
That's kind of the definition of a no-brainer. Wow.
Yeah, I would do that all day long. Yeah, so this is my new favorite Magic Kingdom resort, especially if you're renting points. I wouldn't pay cash because again, cash prices are for chumps. But we should call those chump prices and just go with that.
Okay.
But renting points is where it's at. So really like that a lot. Also, Jim, the walkway between the TTC and the Magic Kingdom is now fully open.
Good to hear.
Which is the good news. And then in other Disney World opening and closure news, Swiss Family Treehouse looks like it's going to reopen soon. I was doing some stuff in Adventureland last week and noticed that most of the scaffolding is down. Looks like they're getting ready to open that. Also, did you see Astro Orbiters closing in January for at least 6 months?
Yeah. And speaking of scaffolding, that's going to get interesting as well. Always intrigued as to how, when they work on that one, how it impacts, the people mover, everything.
Yep.
So just be ready, folks.
Yeah, that was interesting because I did the Christmas party Friday night and then read about the Astro Orbiter closing like a couple days later. And I actually rode Astro Orbiter during the Christmas party. I went on with a nun. Not making this up. It was fun.
Okay. There's a story there. I'm sure there is. Okay.
At some other point, sure.
Okay.
And then also Hall of Presidents is closing January 21st for refurbishment. Jim, the thing I love about this is that Disney had to say, and we're going to reopen it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a short refurbishment, just to get everything sort of up to date. And they had to do it on the 21st because they had to give President Biden his full 4 years.
There we go.
And so that's that.
Okay.
All right, over in Disneyland for Disneyland news, Disney's announced a free open to the public casting audition, Jim, for an immersive workshop on January 17th, 2025 in Pasadena. And the note for this, Jim, says, shipboard performers fleet-wide for Disney Cruise Line. Disney's seeking highly skilled and versatile performers with a strong background in improv and or sketch comedy, coupled with a proficiency in musical theater to develop a repertoire of immersive Disney entertainments at sea. And if you guys are interested in this, I put the link to more details in the show notes. Jim, there's a ton of ways they can go with this. What do you think?
Well, I love your note or your idea about what they could potentially do here. And please, from your lips to God's ears, explain what your idea is.
It's 4 words, Adventures Club at Sea.
Oh, I missed that point.
I hasten to add that the Disney Adventure is a upcoming ship.
There we go.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but the words are already there.
Okay. Yes. Otis Wren, Emil Bleehole. I want to see them again.
And if you look at the theming that Disney's done on the Treasure with the Haunted Mansion bar, which is fantastic. Everything I've seen on it is amazing. I mean, an Adventures Club, you'd never be able to get in.
No, true. But that would then force you to book another cruise. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, they do reservations on it. Yeah, super fabulous. I think that's a great idea. I'd love to see what they're doing with it. So. Also in Disneyland, Disneyland Railroad closes January 13th for some minor maintenance. It's going to reopen, they say, in time for the 70th anniversary celebration to start in May. So that's good. Some refurb there.
Okay.
Also, Jim, some interesting changes to Disneyland annual passes from our friend Haston on Blue Sky. So he notes that the Imagine Key passes, which are the cheapest Disneyland APs, now include Sunday access to the parks in January of 2026, and those had previously been weekday-only passes. Also, the Enchant Key passes include Saturdays in January 2026, and that hasn't happened for, it will be 5 years. Yeah. All right, and I mention this, Jim, because I'm reasonably sure Disney's yield management team is working on a dynamic pricing initiative for Disneyland and Walt Disney World, similar to the one that just rolled out a couple of weeks ago at Disneyland Paris. But I've heard it's for hotel rooms and tickets. And I'm trying to figure out how this works with that, because I don't see how dynamic pricing would work when you're already telling annual pass holders with blockout dates 13 months in advance what days they can visit. That seems like something you'd only know much closer in if you're using dynamic pricing.
You're not wrong. But at the same time, when you look at, for example, Sunday access in January, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer as well. I mean, it's if you get past the holiday season, the decorations have come down, and the fewer locals are coming out, so there would be demand to fill there. Likewise. The Saturdays in January. Again, once you get post-holiday and all those decorations are down, the locals just don't come out.
Yeah. That is going to be one of the interesting things to see with dynamic pricing of tickets, is how far out they can guarantee availability to annual pass holders versus, let's just drop the price of the ticket X dollars. There's probably going to be a floor under which they're just not going to drop tickets.
You have to think long range situations like that.
Yeah, my guess is this is a phased project. Like, it's not just going to be one project. It's probably a couple of them. It's probably going on for a couple of years. My guess is not only yield management, but technology's got to be involved in this. So big project. But yeah, I'm expecting dynamic pricing to come to World and to Disneyland like in the next year or so.
Safe bet.
Yeah. Also, over at Universal Orlando, Jim, did you see footage has leaked from the interior of the Ministry of Magic ride?
I mean, this was a large space when it was shown in the films. But again, anybody who paid attention to what's going on in visual effects these days, it's like, okay, there's the set, and there's the matte painting or the set extension and that sort of thing.
Right.
So to physically actually do this, to create this space, stunning. I just cannot wait to get in there.
The size of that room, I mean, Disney's done big rooms before. The AT-AT room in Rise of the Resistance is massive. Reportedly, the Antonio's room in the upcoming Encanto ride is massive. But this is a whole other level. This is like, I looked at this and I thought, are we looking at like, the Hoover Dam, like a Works Projects Administration, is this a WPA project? Like from the Depression?
There we go.
This thing is huge. It's that kind of scale of things and it's not one room. It's actually, if you look at the video, it's a room with a curved track in it that's got to be 50, 60, 70 yards long.
Yeah.
It's not just one show scene. It's a part of a major ride through of something that happens. And Jim, was it tiles they were putting on the wall?
Yeah. Well, you have to admire Universal Creatives. I mean, from the get-go, when they were doing the original Wizarding World Hogsmeade, they had Stuart Craig and the guys who'd actually been the art directors on the films, consulting so the look of that what was done in the park would match what had been done to the films. But to think that we are, I mean, the last Harry Potter movie that was set in this world, 2011, Len.
Yeah.
We were almost 15 years past when this film was shot. and the fact that they are doing this level of dedication to getting the look right.
Yeah.
This far after the fact. Again, you have to admire the commitment.
That's the thing. I was when we saw the interior press photos a couple weeks ago, we talked about it on the show. I was like, oh, that's an impressive, set design for a queue. It looks great. What's the ride gonna be? And then to see just this one room, be that big, I'm like, what is going on inside of here? Also, Jim, you and I have noted for a while that Ministry of Magic is going to be, we think, the ride that opens last, or it'll be the last ride completed because of various issues that we've heard about it. And this seems to confirm that, right? So we're still in the construction phase of Ministry of Magic, and there are other rides that you can tell from video and photos from our friend BioReconstruct that they're actually doing ride testing with ride vehicles on tracks right now.
Yeah.
Ministry of Magic is still getting built. Yeah. So that makes sense. Okay, fair.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. If you're one of those folks who's planning on being there in May, that you may need to circle back in the fall. Just saying. So
I'm super excited to see it. It looks, you gotta love a swing for the fences. Also, so Jim, it was funny. I was when I was at the Poly Island Tower, there's a bunch of cast members that were there that I was talking to, and a few of them had come over from the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Oh,
and inevitably, my first day was like, I was like, where did you work? Where'd you come from before this? And it's like, a few places. I worked here, I worked there, I worked at the Star Cruiser. I'm like, and as soon as they said Star Cruiser, my immediate response is the single greatest thing that the Walt Disney Company has ever done in the theme park space, right? Like, it was just so good. And everyone's like, yeah. Anyway, it's fantastic. All right, on to surveys, Jim. Tamir Rogson sent in a Disneyland survey with a question that I am curious about. And here is the question for all of you survey makers and survey takers out there. Which of the following places that you go to for news coverage is your most trusted source? Yahoo? Reuters? A local or regional newspaper? I trust them all equally, and I prefer not to answer. And my first reaction is, those are my choices? Yahoo, Reuters, and the Tryon Daily Bulletin? Like, that's it? That's what I get?
It does tell you a little bit about the media sphere that we live in at this moment, Len.
I get the local regional answer, right? Because a lot of people, that's just the paper that they that they subscribe to. Yahoo, I get as a news aggregator. I get Reuters as a news agency, right? And Reuters.com, I get that. Their stories run in every major media outlet, but as a standalone news source, like I'm curious as to how many people have that as like their go-to news thing.
Yeah, I just alluded to this earlier. We are in an interesting moment in regard to how we all go about getting our news, and what previously had been trusted news sources aren't necessarily trusted as much anymore. So, just interesting that Disney itself is trying to sort of feel out this space.
And so I wonder if different people who get this survey get different news organizations in their question. And I mentioned that because remember on last week's show or 2 shows ago, we had mentioned a survey where somebody had asked about crowding in 3 specific lands in the Magic Kingdom. And one of them was Main Street and one of them was Frontierland, Liberty Square. And we had wondered if that was like specifically in reference to upcoming construction there. And so I did get answers from a few other listeners who got similar surveys from different lands, but it looked like no one got, as far as I can tell, no one got Fantasyland in the survey. So, it could be one of those things where they're focusing on a specific land, but just also want to check the rest of the park as a benchmark. That's my theory.
All right. No. That's an interesting way to go.
And speaking of listener questions, we got this from Robert Spence. It says, Len and Jim, I absolutely love the Disney dish, and I look forward to listening every Monday. Thanks for making the first day of my work week go faster with your humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes commentary and reporting. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Anyway.
Okay.
I was curious if you could both do a show on the history of Disneyland's Tomorrowland and how the different incarnations of the land came to be. Also, can Jim shed some light on why the Disney Company has continued to neglect this land for so long, and when they've tried to update it, why it's more of a Band-Aid or cosmetic redo than a serious attempt like New Fantasyland of 1983 and 2014. All right, so Jim, I actually went back through all of the shows that we've done, and I couldn't find one show where we did a sit-down version of Disneyland's Tomorrowland, so we should probably do one.
Okay. I mean, just a warning, it's kind of a heartbreaker because there was at least the Tomorrowland 2055 project that would have updated things in such a grandiose, amazing way. But hell, there was, to be honest, I was just chatting with Mr. Schul about once upon a time there wasn't going to be a Galaxy's Edge, that Tomorrowland was going to go away and become a Star Wars themed land, and before that there was Lucasport. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they did, but yeah, we can definitely go in that direction. It's just have a lot of Kleenex available, folks. Just not going to be a happy story.
My wife, Laurel, says, and I think correctly, that Tomorrowland is the least cohesive themed of any Disney theme park land because it's just a hodgepodge of things. Yeah, so absolutely,
yeah.
Jim, I did note that way back when we first started the show, like one of the episodes in the 30s, back in 2013, you and I did a live trip to Disneyland where we talked briefly about the history of Tomorrowland. I've talked to Eric, our producer, to ask him to get that episode onto Patreon, so that should happen in a week or so.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Also, Katie Garlock writes in with a rock and roller coaster holiday overlay idea. Katie says, if you've never had the pleasure of watching A Muppet Family Christmas, let me introduce you to this 80s treasure. It features the Muppets, Sesame Street, Fraggles, and Jim Henson. But in the spirit of suggesting music for the future Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster, I want to suggest the rendition of Jingle Bell Rock that starts at 8 minutes and 6 seconds of this YouTube video. And I have a link to the YouTube video in the show notes. But Jim, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. It just, in fact, it's the one time when all of the aspects of the Venn diagram come together.
Yeah.
Everything that they were working on at the time and everything they'd previously touched. And I have to admit, I enjoy sort of the grace note at the end. Henson comes in at the very end of it, and he sort of looks into the room with all of his characters, and then he gets to work washing the dishes from the party.
Exactly, yeah.
He said, I like seeing it when they're all having fun. But, he then gets to work cleaning up. And it's just sort of like, I love that man.
I watched the first bit of it, and it is filled with the sort of Muppet Vision jokes that you would come to expect from that. There's this one where Rolf is coming in, and he's like, "Yeah, I just chased the delivery truck all the way up the hill. I'm exhausted. Get it? Dog chasing truck, exhaust." Yeah, and he explains the joke to Fozzie, and Fozzie's like, "Yeah, I get it. Dog humor." Thank you for sending that in, Katie. That was great.
Yeah.
All right, Bill Chronister writes in with this question about Magic Kingdom resorts. And he says, can you walk all the way from the TTC to the Contemporary without going through Magic Kingdom security? And why can't you walk all the way around Seven Seas Lagoon in a giant loop? Which brings me to my actual question. Why isn't there a resort on the monorail between the Contemporary and the TTC? From aerial images, it looks like roughly the same amount of space that the Grand Floridian takes up, and there's lots of demand for Magic Kingdom hotel rooms. All right, Jim, so the first question. Can you walk all the way around from the TTC to the Contemporary without going through Magic Kingdom security? And the answer is no. Because the security for that entrance is right by the boat docks. So right before you get to the boat docks, if you're coming from the Grand Floridian, there's a gate with metal detectors and stuff like that. So no way around it unless you're making an end run around the fences, and don't do that.
No, do not do that.
And then the second question: why isn't there a resort on the opposite side of the Seven Seas Lagoon from the new Poly Island Tower? So, Jim, I pulled up the Central Florida Tourism Oversight Board's 2020 Comprehensive Plan and figure 2.5 or 2-5 in that for the suitability ratings for the land. I put the diagram, the map, in the show notes. The red area, Jim, is suitable, and the green is unsuitable. So I don't know if that's a somebody who making this map was colorblind or what, But the red area between the TTC and the Contemporary is suitable for development. And we had long thought it wasn't, right, Jim?
Well, I have always heard the stories about, first the Venetian was supposed to go in there, and then just recently you actually did some research on the Mediterranean, right?
Right.
And the stories that I've always heard where they have done test pilings, because again, the idea that it's on the edge of Seven Seas Lagoon, you want to, in much the same way you were just talking about the new Poly Tower, you want to embrace the water. This is something that people coming to Walt Disney World want to see and enjoy, but they put test pilings in there and they just sank out of sight.
Yeah.
And they kept revisiting it and trying to figure out different footprints and different stress loads, and just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, so I wonder what made them recategorize this as suitable. Like, is there a difference between suitable and possible? Like, yeah, we could build here if it was, if we could get the buildings to stand up. Or is there, like, I have to go back and do a little bit more digging on what the term suitable means.
Okay.
It could be suitable from an environmental perspective.
There we go.
Not from a feasibility perspective. I'll go back and look at that.
Okay.
But you mentioned the unbuilt Mediterranean resort. I really think we should do a show topic on that. I put a link in the show notes to a fly-through video that I had rendered from the Mediterranean resort room plans, saying this is what the room would have looked like if it had been built. And one of the things that our video person did was include a view of the Grand Floridian on the opposite shore from the balcony, so it looks like it should look.
Wow.
Like the placing is right.
Okay.
I know, yeah.
All right.
We care about the small details here at the show, Jim.
That we do.
All right, so we'll do that. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim continues the history of Disney's Riviera Resort. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Streaming now on Peacock. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie are back.
That's hot. Loves it.
For a show-stopping reunion that will prove putting on an opera is anything but simple.
We're really good at this.
One thing's for sure, they won't be upstaged.
Good to have you back. Come on, we've got a show to do.
Paris and Nicole, The Encore, a 3-part reunion special. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
And we're back. All right, Jim, before we talk about where we left off last week, I note a email from our listener, Brian Bomser, who says that whoever designed the Skyliner, which connects the Caribbean Beach Resort to the rest of the property, had to be from New York City because the station you change at to get anywhere else is Jamaica, just like getting to JFK from the LIRR. As soon as he started along this, I'm like, there's a Jamaica joke in here somewhere. I just know it.
Oh, God. And I guess I should also mention here Tom M., another fan of the show, mentioned that the other thing that he really enjoys about the Skyliner is that in the transfer station, in the bathroom, you get that good, high-quality, multi-ply toilet paper, as opposed to that miserable one-ply stuff that they have in the parks. You know you're passing through a quality resort based on the toilet paper. So.
It's true. We could do an entire show on this, but it would be gross.
There we go. We go. All right. So
thank you, Brian. All right,
okay.
Good. So Jim, we left off last week. We were talking about the opening of Caribbean Beach, right? 2,112 rooms.
Yep. And remember when this kicked open its doors, October 1st, 1988. Only a third of the rooms were done. The rest of the stuff came in online in dribs and drabs, done by July of '89. Now, on last week's show, we were talking about where the Caribbean Beach Resort was, where the Epcot construction team had left that giant root ball mass that they found when they were digging World Showcase Lagoon. But what we didn't talk about is why the Epcot construction team, I mean, remember, they had 41 square miles of property that they could have hauled this thing to. Why did they place this there? Okay, to tell that story, we have to jump back to April of 1964. This is when Disney Junior executive Bob Foster, after making a very big show of, hey, look at me, I'm here at Flushing Meadow, I'm here as our company is opening all these shows at the New York World's Fair. And then to sort of tie back to your Jamaica thing then, Bob fades into the crowd, hops in a cab, goes over to Newark, climbs on a plane, and he then flies down to Florida. And it's on this trip plan that Foster sets up the first of those shell companies that Disney used to buy a property in Orange and Osceola County, which eventually provided Disney with the construction site of Project Florida, a.k.a. the Walt Disney World Resort. And this level of secrecy and deception was essential, or so Walt thought, largely because of what had happened in back in 54. And there were a few parcels of land that Disney had not yet tied up when news broke that Walt was going to build his family fun park in among the old orange groves and walnut trees. And what ended up happening is the few parcels that Walt still needed, suddenly the asking price jumped by nearly 10 times. And in fact, some of them went from, you're going to have to lease this, as opposed to.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So Walt was determined that this not happen again with Project Florida, which is why Bob Foster works in complete secrecy for months. In fact, to the point where he was not allowed. Well, first of all, he flew in and out of Miami to try to cover his trail. And then they added the additional condition that he could not take a flight directly back to L.A. He always had to change planes somewhere else in the country, and typically couldn't follow the same route that he'd followed on the earlier trip, just with the notion of masking his trail. But anyway, what ends up happening, of course, nobody counts on Emily Bravara. She's the reporter for the Orlando Sentinel. She's the one who's noticing that, all right, there are all these different companies buying up parcels in Osceola County, but she can't help but notice that a lot of these parcels are right next to one another. And it just sort of like, and that, when you start going through the pile and lining up, that got bought, and that got bought, and that got bought, it's like, this is, okay, it's worth the swampland and cattle pasture, but it's also twice the size of Manhattan. Something's going on. And Emily's the one who, on October 21st, 1965, she writes the story for the Sentinel that says, we say Mystery Industry, as in the company that's buying up all this land or in around Central Florida, is Disney. And it's not until November 15th, some 3.5 weeks later, that Walt and Roy, they hold a press conference in the Egyptian room of the Cherry Plaza Hotel in downtown Orlando. And in fact, then Governor Hayden Burns is there right alongside them when they announce, yep, we're the ones buying up the property. We're building an East Coast Disneyland and so much more. But between October 21st and November 15th in 1965, just as Walt feared, land speculators swoop in and begin snatching up property directly adjacent to all the land that Walt is buying up. And this development obviously frustrates Bob Foster because prior to this story breaking in the Sentinel, he was zeroing in on 500 acres of land, which was right next to I-4 and was directly adjacent to a lot of the property that Disney had already purchased.
Wait, where on I-4? What's it close to?
Well, this is Bonnet Creek, Len.
Is this how Bonnet Creek ended up not being a part of property?
That's it exactly. All of this...
Is it really?
Yeah, all owned by one individual where the story gets interesting, Len, is they had bought this 500 acres in 1962. All right, so that's a full...
The current owners bought it in 1962 before Disney was interested in it.
Well, that's it exactly. Long before Disney swooped in there and surreptitiously began buying up this property. And Foster was doing his due diligence. He was... And the interesting part is it was kind of his playbook. It had been purchased by a third party, a shell company.
A shell company? Was it? Okay,
right.
Great. Okay.
And then all he could find out is that the deed holder was overseas.
In the country of Genovia.
There we go. There we go. All right.
Huh. And what were they going to... Why are they buying...
This is what's fascinating about it, Len. That evidently the original plan for this 500 acres, and again, remember, it's directly adjacent to I-4.
Right.
The idea is to build a series of warehouses with the notion of this would become a major distribution center for the state of Florida.
Oh, because it's centrally located. You go to Tampa, you go to the Space Coast. Okay.
That's it exactly. You know, goods coming up from some South Florida, say sugar or citrus, could then be offloaded, placed in trucks that could then head up to the Panhandle or over to Tallahassee and Jacksonville. And what I love about this is Walt wanted the Disney World to be built here for the exact same reason, only just with the notion that people who are coming on vacation to Florida and are headed to the beaches, they have to go through Central Florida at some point.
Right.
And so this is where you want to go. So anyway, late summer of 1965, Foster has supposedly begun conversations with this third party. Can you get a message to whoever it is who owns this land that we're interested and willing to give you a reasonable price for the property? But then, of course, before they can get too far along, Emily Bavara's story drops October of the same year, and the third party reaches back to Foster and says the buyer has now decided that they want to hang on to those 500 acres.
At this point, it's a lottery ticket, but it's like one of two lottery tickets because there's a 50-50 chance Disney World succeeds, right?
There we go. And I have to say, this makes Walt crazy because he now owns the land to the north, south, and west of this 500 acres. More to the point, if you've ever looked at Walt's original plans for Walt Disney World, remember the entrance complex where there was supposed to be the campground and the low-cost motels, as well as the monorail station that first would take you through Epcot, the city, and then continue on up into the monorail resort area.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, that 500 acres was part of this. And without that, Walt's version of the entrance complex no longer worked.
So if you're looking at this like if you're looking at Disney World as a clock face, Disney owns the property at 6 o'clock, which is the Art of Animation Resort.
Right.
And it owns the property at 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock, which is Typhoon Lagoon in downtown Disney. It doesn't own the property at 5 o'clock, which is Bonnet Creek.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is it's right between the two exits on I-4 that you use to get to so there's access either way. I could totally see how that would be aggravating.
And this just gnawed at them. So every 6 months, starting in the mid-1960s all the way to the early 70s, Disney would reach out to this third party. And again, okay, how about now? Has the owner changed their mind? And what if we offered this price?
Yeah.
And we now get to like 74, 75. And this is when the company is developing the shopping village at Lake Buena Vista, not to mention turning the motels that used to be on Hotel Plaza into full-fledged hotels. And now this mysterious owner in a foreign country changes the tune. They announced that they now want to build hotels of their own right on this piece of property adjacent to I-4.
You know, Jim, let me just say, if the Dole Banana Company had owned this property, they would have overthrown whatever government this person in Europe would have been in. So whatever Disney's about to do here, it probably pales in comparison. Go ahead.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, just because this is the interesting. Now, you have to assume we are now in the mid 1970s. Disney World has proved itself that it's making money hand over fist, and it's endeared itself to the government of Florida. It's
jobs, tax revenue.
There we go.
Putting Central Florida on the map. Yep.
Okay, so
we're building a new big airport. Yep.
There we go. So Disney actually turns to officials in Central Florida in regard to this development, and not to mention state reps up in Tallahassee, and effectively asks for their help without asking, inferring, suggesting. You're never saying the quiet part out loud that we want you to delay or
slow walk.
There we go. Because again,
just make sure everything is in order. That's all I'm asking.
All the permits, that sort of thing. And Len,
we just want the citizens of Central Florida to know that their government cares.
There we go.
About the development of this particular piece of property, and it's not just going willy-nilly, head first into its construction.
Oh, you have a gift, Len. All right.
I've read my share of internal memo before. Go ahead.
Okay, and this tactic goes on for nearly 2 decades. And again, on the back of Disney being one of Florida's largest employers, not to mention the various contributions that Disney is making to the coffers of state officials, local officials who are seeking re-election. And you and I know what this is. This is something to do in the corporate world in situations like this, where typically the person with the biggest wallet wins. You just spend and delay until you exhaust the other side. But what Disney had not counted on, Len, is that this mysterious owner who lived in a foreign country, the gentleman who held these 500 acres, turns out to be a nephew of Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek.
Ooh, yeah, the whole calculus changes when your opponent has nuclear weapons.
Well,
I'm just saying, there's a lot you could do for corporate strategy. Tanks is where your corporate strategy ends.
No, totally, and people need to remember that this is. Oops. That Chiang Kai-shek was actually recognized by the United Nations as the legitimate leader of China up until 1971. So, all right, long story short here, folks, this is a very moneyed, very powerful family that the Walt Disney Company now finds itself going up against. And the mouse knows, look, we can tie this up in courts for years, and we can do appeal after appeal after appeal. But the end result is always going to be the same. Like it or not, they're eventually going to have to allow the World Union Industrial Corporation, that's the name of the company that Chiang Kai-shek's family operated out of Hong Kong, that held the deed to this property, that they were going to have to be allowed to develop the property. Now, this didn't mean that Disney could make it easy or even pleasant for the folks of the World Union Industrial Corporation.
Hold on, Jim. I haven't read the show notes, but tell me that the story you're about to tell includes the phrase "prevailing winds."
There we go.
Does it?
All right. There we go. Suddenly, the reason that the root mass just happens to be dropped there, and for a solid 18 months, nobody can stand to be in that area. But that's how personal and how petty.
We're going to put a cannery right here.
There we go. All right. So anyway, we jump ahead 15 years, and at this point, Disney effectively throws in the towel, and by the mid-1990s, Reedy Creek and the World Union Industrial Corporation are now having discussions about how they might go about developing what is now being called the Bonnet Creek Resort area. And now the problem is, of course, you have to create an access road because, again, you're going to be building multi-leveled hotels. So this is where the Chelonian Parkway gets built. Chelonia. All right.
Chelonia.
Now,
yeah. Just remember, it sounds like somebody who would have starred in a Prince movie in the 80s. Go ahead.
There we go. Apollonia's good, close personal friend. Okay. Now, I want to stress that if you have not stayed at any of the resorts and we'll discuss which ones actually got built in a moment. But if you've never actually driven down this roadway to Chelonia, I highly recommend that you do it, if only so you can then get a sense of what poor General Joe Potter dealt with when he was sent down to Florida in 1965 and effectively told, I know you did the Panama Canal, but we need 40 miles worth of drainage canals built in here. And just to see what this poor man had to deal with. You can look out to either side of the roadway and see this pristine cypress swamp and realize, how did they do this?
So two interesting things. One, you see the cypress trees, but to your point, what you don't see is the cypress tree roots.
Oh, no. Don't.
Also, if you happen to be looking at a map, Bonnet Creek looks like it's man-made because it is. Like, that might be the original source for some of Bonnet Creek, but I guarantee you that is the Joe Fowler Engineering Inc. Making the pathway for Bonnet Creek.
Totally.
Also, that place is huge. You come off of Buena Vista Drive, it's a hike to get to the Marriott.
No, totally. I mean, that's why I love it. I mean, you can, it's not a question of, for like 30 seconds or so, you get a view of what Florida must have looked like, this chunk of Florida back in 65. You drive for a good 3, 4, 5 minutes, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
and there's that area where you're like the Caribbean beach is on your right, but you're not yet to the Wyndham. And you've got like 10 seconds of just being surrounded by swamp.
Totally.
In the middle of Disney World. Yeah.
No, if you haven't done it yet, folks, just indulge yourself, drive down there and get a taste of the prehistoric past. Anyway, we jump ahead to the year 2000, and Orlando-based architect Guy Butler comes up with a master plan for this 500-acre parcel. Involves creation of a timeshare resort, 4 and 5 high-end hotels, and an 18-hole golf course. Now, mind you, it takes a couple of years to get investors on board. Finally, in 2002, Fairfield Resorts, which is a timeshare developer, they buy 46 acres. They're the ones who make the Fairfield Orlando at Bonnet Creek Resort. That opens in June of 2004. But then in the world of mergers, Fairfield then becomes the Wyndham Bonnet Creek Resort in 2006, after Fairfield effectively buys the Wyndham brand. And to further confuse it, today the same hotel is known as the Club Wyndham Bonnet Creek.
And by the way, these rooms are nice and they're relatively inexpensive for the size that you get. Like a Wyndham Bonnet Creek 2-bedroom.
Oh yeah.
Even during December is sometimes very, very reasonably priced.
All true. But at the same time, they being brave enough to plant the flag, it's a while before there's anything else back there. I mean, May of 2006, we find out that Hilton has decided to join, and so they're going to do a 1,000-room Hilton hotel as well as a 497-room Waldorf Astoria. Now, that's a luxury property there, and this hotel, these two hotels would then share a conference center, and that combined property, the Hilton Orlando Bonnet Creek and the Waldorf Astoria Orlando, those open in October of 2009, and then
very solid properties, very solid.
But then, almost 8 years go by before we see the next addition to Bonnet Creek.
I mean, to be fair, the 2008 financial crisis was in there, you know, it took a while for everything to bounce back. Yeah.
No, totally. You're not wrong. But it's not till August of 2017 that we learned that we're getting a 516-room Marriott built back there. And what's interesting is that this is a JW Marriott.
It's the high end of the Marriott, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so that is a resort and spa that opens in July of 2020. And again, we want to stress that when we finally get around to our golf course, this is designed by Reese Jones, who's the American golf course architect. It's also it's the Waldorf Astoria Golf Club. It's the first time ever that a golf club has had the Waldorf Astoria name associated with it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep. Anyway, so long story short, Len, over time, the Bonnet Creek Resort area becomes home to a lot of the big spenders who bring their families to Walt Disney World on vacation.
And conference stuff, right? Too,
There we go. So you have folks who come there for corporate events, who get to sample this and think, "Ooh, I have to come back here with my family," which has an interesting impact on the Caribbean beach resort, which again, remember, previously a moderate, but now through the magic of proximity, and remember, in our very first installment of the series, we talk about when it comes to real estate, it's all about location, location, location. This has suddenly become a far more valuable piece of property, a much more desirable location on Disney World property, which then gets managers thinking, could it now be time to reimagine this particular corner of the resort? Maybe turn it into something a bit more upscale that might then appeal to the folks who are staying just down the street here over at the Bonnet Creek resort area. And that's the inciting event that we will discuss in the third and final installment of our Riviera Resort. But honestly, it's Bonnet Creek that made Disney decide, okay, maybe this is where we put our 15th DVC.
That's really interesting for a couple of reasons. One is this: the distance from the Caribbean Beach parking lot, like the Barbados parking lot, to the Wyndham Bonnet Creek parking lot is 400 feet and change. Like they're really, like, you could hit a 3-iron.
No, totally.
Or a driver. That far. The other thing is that the conference rooms. So people who are using Hilton for conferences or the Waldorf Astoria for conferences, they not only had the conference facilities there, and again, cheaper than Disney, right? Because Disney, up to this point, every Disney conference facility was, I believe, at a deluxe resort, right?
Oh yeah.
So now you've got cheaper offsite prices. You've got like the Bull and Bear, which is a wonderful restaurant with excellent service, at the Waldorf. It starts to become competition for not the high end conferences, but like the second tier of conferences where, you want to, there's a little bit of a budget. Your executives are still going to come, but the executives are going to stay at a Waldorf Astoria, not at Port Orleans Riverside. Super interesting.
No, totally. Okay. And again, but this is something, I mean, we were talking earlier about Epic Universal and sort of alluding to the construction that's about to begin over at the Magic Kingdom, that many of none of these stories happen in a vacuum.
It's all a response to something else,
There we go. And this is, the Riviera was kind of Disney suddenly, after stonewalling Bonnet Creek for so long, it's like, well, if you can't beat them, maybe join them.
Exactly. Maybe we could just do that. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHaleMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our most recent show is on Mission Tomorrow's Tomorrowland's Leap from Reality to Imagination. And on next week's show, Jim continues the history of Disney's Riviera Resort. You can find more of Jim at JimHaleMedia.com and more of me, Len, at TouringPlans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be sharing Oma Gray's stroopwafels and recipes with all of you celebrating your Dutch heritage at Pella's annual Tulip Time Festival, running May 1st through the 3rd, 2025, starting on Franklin Street in beautiful downtown Pella, Iowa. While Eric and David are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.